Well, hi everyone. Thanks so much for being here today. My name's Julia Gilmore. I'm the Branded Content Manager at Times Higher Education, and I'll be chairing today's discussion. I'm also pleased to be joined by Massimo Gentili, the General Manager for Europe, Middle East and Africa at CLAS. So the session today is looking to the future of hybrid learning in the UK and the Middle East to boost student and institutional success, which is a Times Higher Education roundtable in partnership with CLAS Technologies. Please note that a recording of today's discussion will be available on demand, along with the summary article on the Times Higher Education website in due course, should you wish to revisit this discussion or share it on social media or with colleagues, which we really do encourage. By far the most seismic effect of the COVID-19 pandemic on higher education was the rapid and necessary adoption of digital and hybrid learning across the sector. The shift from the physical to the virtual classroom has brought both new challenges and new opportunities for students and staff alike. So today we'll be sharing knowledge and discussing best practice about those new strategic challenges institutions must now embrace to deliver student success. And I'd like to begin by asking, how can you keep students engaged with digital learning platforms, which can therefore increase retention and attainment? Who's going to volunteer to go first? I will pick on people, I'm afraid. Lisa, you're at the top of my screen, so I'm afraid it's you this time.
No problem at all. So, hi everybody. I'm Professor Lisa Taylor. I'm Professor of Employability and Learning Innovation from the University of East Anglia. So I come with experience around employability, but also the development of online placement and work-based learning. And so I suppose thinking about the engagement of students, certainly the infrastructure development is really important, so that you have the necessary functionality. So certainly within the UEA, we've developed the utility of Blackboard and the different functionality that you have with Blackboard, so that you can represent that sort of functionality more to help students engage. But from a pedagogical point of view, it's around the learning design, the learning outcomes, being clear about the learning outcomes, students buying into those learning outcomes and having meaningful learning outcomes for them, so that they're wanting to engage with the learning that there is in order to fulfill their learning outcomes. And certainly with the online work-based learning opportunity that I developed, there wasn't just the general learning outcomes. There were individual learning goals as well, with individual learning contracts. So topping within the literature is quite widely renowned in the literature around learning and how you can encourage engagement in learning. And certainly, as well as having the broader learning outcomes, having individual goals can really help with that engagement as well.
Fantastic, thank you. And Jolly, I see your hands up.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm glad to be part of this discussion. And going back to your question, yes, hybrid learning is going to bring a lot of benefits. And I would say it's more of a blend. It provides best of both worlds, from traditional as well as online learning. It comes with many benefits like flexibility, freedom of choice, and other things, but many challenges as well. And many researchers suggest that lack of participation, lack of engagement, student engagement is one of the key challenges instructors face in online or digital tools. So I do believe there has to be a pilot test whenever you apply a new tool or a digital learning, activity or anything. Digitization is actually a culture. It's not about technology. It's about the mindset you develop around the schools, around the students' mindset as well. In addition to that, faculty buy-in is important. For digital tools, we understand that it's more commitment, it's more efforts from the faculty or the instructor side. And then to get students engaged is another challenge. So pilot test is important. Collaborative learning, starting from small, going from micro to macro is equally important. I know because of COVID, we all went online, but at Prince Sultan University, from where I come, we started blended learning and hybrid learning long back in 2015. So the transition was actually easy for us. But then again, not with all courses, it was a reactive approach. But now that we know that future work is more of hybrid, we are moving towards work from home and more of hybrid culture. Why not to prepare students for that culture, for that work, future work, right? And if they understand everything now, it's better to start early. It will not be a cultural shock for them to work on technological tools or new things. In addition, we need to develop students. When you said employability, somebody mentioned that. There are hard skills, technical skills, and soft skills. When we go with digitization or digital learning tools more, I think we miss on the value aspect, we miss on social rapport, we miss on social interaction, and that human factor is missing. So I think instructors need to be very cautious when they develop the learning tools, that there is some kind of collaborative learning happening through the tools. And as Hybrid mentioned, it has to be a mix of both. So students or learners need to meet outside, and then outside the class, inside the class, and then of course, collaborate digitally, through many platforms which are available. So yes, hybrid will bring or is bringing best of both worlds, but we need to be very cautious with the challenges and definitely the points which I mentioned. I'll leave the room for others. Thank you.
Thank you. Catherine, I see your hands up.
Hi, everybody. So I think it comes back to what Lisa spoke about at the beginning, which is learning design. Just to say, I'm director of the Keele Institute of Innovation and Teaching Excellence at Keele University. And I'm just currently developing the capacity of my team, who've already been involved in learning design really over the past year or so, but I'm really ramping up that learning design capability. So alongside my day job of managing the curriculum design development and learning design teams, I also teach. So I teach a module in podcasting and radio production. That's my specialist area. I used to work in radio. And we noticed, at the beginning, we did it as a sort of what you might call a hybrid module. So we teach part of it online and part of it on campus. And the attendance is great at the beginning, as it always is, and then it kind of fills off a little bit as you get halfway through. Last week we did a session online and there was 100% attendance. Everybody turned up, everybody contributed, everybody was excited. Now you may ask, well, what did you do that was different at that halfway point? What we did was we brought in industry experts. So this was a big posh, because obviously the assessment is based on them being able to produce a podcast as part of the assessment, as you'd expect. So I brought in a diverse team of industry experts, made it clear that they would have to present and pitch their idea to the experts, and they really went to town on this. We're really creative. It really brought home the digital capabilities, skills and gaps of students. It was really exciting and interesting, and they were all engaged and excited to have that opportunity to be able to pitch and get really good quality feedback from these industry experts. So I guess what I'm thinking is, when we're doing these sessions, how can we bring in opportunities for feedback? Because it's absolutely critical, I think, for motivation, for student motivation, and keeping them engaged throughout, to have this opportunities for feedback, particularly when it obviously relates to the assessment. So for me, that really brought home the impact of that, not only that kind of real world learning experience where you're obviously able to engage with external experts who, in the real world you will be pitching to, but here they have the opportunity in the module, and also getting that really good feedback, which is now going to influence them as they go away and develop their idea further, ready to produce it for the session. So my big tip there is making sure you have regular points of feedback, and if you can involve external industry experts and link it to employability, then all the better.
Fantastic. That sounds really, really interesting. Massimo, I see your hand up as well. What's your experience been?
Yeah, well, my experience, let's say that keeping the student engaged is definitely one of the biggest challenges when it comes to online. We have recently actually commissioned Times Higher Education for our research that they carried out with hundreds of students, and it came out that 6 in 10 students believe that hybrid learning is the ideal learning experience, so it has an online component. But we see that during the pandemic, basically the pandemic was a kind of a crash course for all instructors, all teachers, professors in the world, to use this type of online technologies. But many of them ended up using a lot of basic video conferencing solution, which is not what is really designed for education, to have live communication, interaction, collaboration. So in line with what Jolly and Catherine mentioned, I mean, there must be communication. There's be an opportunity for the students actually to communicate and be an active part of the session itself. So looking at what we did at Class Technology when we designed the platform, I mean, we look at the physical classroom and the actions that normally happens in a physical classroom when the teacher, just step into the classroom, start making, high content, and they can talk to everybody or individually to the students. It can actually focus the discussion on a specific piece of content on a whiteboard or maybe a physical content if they are, for example, in a chemistry or biology lab, right? So you can actually, they can do quizzes, tests, they can do lots of things, and you normally do that when you are physically in presence. Now, when you transfer that into a virtual environment, then you have a lot of challenges. And the survey that we carried out with Educator really proved that, up to 70% of that type of activities are lost. You can just replicate the pieces. So when you have the right platform, you can actually replicate in a virtual environment the seamless flows of actions that you have in a physical environment. And this is keeping the students much more engaged, actually. And again, engaged, the more engaged they are, the more successful they're going to be. So keeping them engaged means that you give them the chances actually to talk, to speak, and actually to work live on same pieces of content. We have functionality that can actually change their roles, or a single professor can manage with a dashboard a number of breakout rooms that can have access. Each one of the students actually can access, all the tools for interactions, and normally the instructor, can use inside the main room. So there are a lot of functionalities that are designed for that, because basically when you try, to develop a program online, which could be purely online or hybrid learning, which is by far seems to be, what the students really love to have, you still need to make sure that you embed, into the technology, so into your courses, that type of functionalities that can keep the students engaged.
Fantastic, thank you, Massimo. And Hatem, I see your hands up.
Thank you, Julia. My name is Hatem Masri. I'm Professor of Business Analytics and Dean of the College of Business Administration at the University of Bahrain in the Kingdom of Bahrain. Thank you for this gathering. I would like to share my the college experience regarding hybrid learning. We took it in a different perspective. As mentioned earlier, the most important when you do this is the design. If you design and you guide well your faculty or your colleagues, you could expect some results, because people that are used to this learning, they have a learning experience, and they know how to teach for a long time. They've been teaching face-to-face, and they came to this crisis of COVID where they were forced to go online and to teach online. Then the idea that they would like to, the experience that they would like to share with you is that what we did in the College of Business Administration, we took the 3 credit, all right, the 3 hours a week, all right, and we split them into 3 parts. The first part, we are going to give the students a 20 minutes record, all right, plus a small quiz that will give a feedback about the understanding, about how they grasp the information, and it's sent to it's through Blackboard, and it's sent, the results were given to the instructor. Then another 20 minutes plus a small quiz. Then this is for the first hour. The second hour, what we did is that we put together, it's online, all right, but it's synchronous, all right? It's synchronous. The teacher, or let's say the big guy of the course, will come up with multiple sections, 2 to 4 sections, depends on the level of the course. And students, they will ask questions. They will ask questions, and the instructor will respond. And during this 1 hour, we are recording the 1 hour for a reason, because we want to grasp the frequently asked question and train a chatbot, all right? Train the chatbot in order that in the future, these questions will be answered by the chatbot rather than by the instructor himself. And the third hour, all right, for the week, it's for experiential learning. And this is in small groups of 20, 25 students, 20 students. They sit together with mostly with the professional academic. It means that not professional academic, professional instructor who is coming from, for example, if it's a marketing course, then it's a marketer. If it's a finance course, then it's someone from banks, financial institution, to do the practice, to practice what they learned. Then what happened, we experienced that in, first of all, in an accounting course, Accounting 112, usually Accounting 101, it's a heavy course and it's a difficult course for students. And we saw the results. It's wonderful. Students were engaged because they were forced to watch the videos somehow because there is a quiz, and the reports or the answers were given to the instructors. We started receiving questions. For the moment, we did not train yet the chatbot because we need more videos. We need to record for 2-3 years maybe in order to get enough material to train our chatbot. But still, we are receiving good feedback. And finally, they see someone else from outside the college, professional, who will be able to speak their language, show them the value of what they learned during the videos or the value of the questions that they received, and do some practice. And for that, we are partnering with several institutions like Harvard Business Publishing, etc., to take cases, to take examples, etc. With publishers also, they are providing us with a lot of material. And that's the experience. We did it for the first course. We are happy with the results. That's why we are going to extend it for the 14, let's say, core courses, core business courses. And by the way, it's more engagement for the students. I think that, and it's for me as a dean, at the end of the year, I will show a good balance because I'm saving money. I'm saving money and I'm improving students' performance. Then I can give you the number. It's a huge number. It's a good saving of money of using technology. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. And Maher, you've got your hand up.
Yes, hi. Sorry, I cannot turn my camera. Something is wrong with it. I've been playing with both cameras. I don't know what's going on, but I'm sorry. My name is Maher Omar. I'm from the University of Sharjah. I'm an engineering professor and also the director of the Institute of Leadership in Higher Education. طبعا, just like what our colleagues have said, we have experienced exactly the same thing. A lot of those ideas, I'm sure everybody successfully implemented everywhere in the world. But I just want to comment on a couple of things I have noticed with the hybrid. Actually, two parts. The first part is getting the students' attention is not really the way to go. I mean, it was not enough to say, I'm doing okay in hybrid, and this, a lot of students you don't see. So we have to put a lot of emphasis on making sure that the material that we are covering, it sounds important to them, so they can really go on their own research and do things. And also we really had to go through a lot to make them feel that they can do these things that they are learning online or the hybrid way. So a lot of emphasis were put not to get their attention, because that's the easy part, but the difficult part was really to make them feel it is important and to make them feel that they can really do this. And this is the only way we can get them really to be part of this hybrid way of doing things. And because they are away, another aspect, and everybody talks about this, and some of our colleagues here said the motivation and all this. Yes, I agree, it is a driving force. But again, being most of the time online, we shifted into competencies, and instead of really just focusing on the skills that we all do, we focused on the competencies itself. And I'm sure we're all the same way. So we had to put in the values, the humans, the cultural diversity, the justice, fairness. We had to mix this somehow with the skills, and also the issue of the attitude, respect, responsibility, the tolerance, all these things combined together, building, I'm just in short, we call the competency. So skills by itself with the hybrid, and I don't think it's enough to get us where we want to go. It's good, but now we have to really do that mix to really make sure it is successful. This is really the way we moved here at the University of Sharjah. I just wanted to kind of mention what we have done. Thank you so much.
Fantastic, thank you. And Gareth, what's your experience been?
Yes, good morning, everyone, or whatever part of the world where you're in. My name's Gareth Naber. I'm Head of Engineering and Innovation at the Open University. And I just wanted to kind of react to some of the comments that are being made, which I generally agree with, absolutely correct. But I think that the thing that I think you have to have at the heart of this discussion is what the student perspective is, what the student experience is. And, we've talked about the design of programs, we've talked about learning outcomes in this discussion so far. But actually, in order to succeed in the hybrid environment, and to some extent, the Open University has had a long history of this. It's known for distance learning, but we do offer face-to-face events and learning opportunities. We really got to have the quality at the heart, and the student has to see the worth, has to see the value. Now, one of the problems with hybrid environments, of course, is that not every student is at the same level in terms of information technology. There's elements of digital poverty, there's elements of digital literacy, as well as other aspects in terms of internationalization and experiences in different cultures. So I think we've really got to see the world from the students' eyes, in my view, in order to be able to design and provide and deliver products and experiences that are really worth it. And from a student perspective, they'll only succeed, when we talk about student successes, they will only succeed if they are motivated to succeed and they feel part of a community or part of a cohort, and they can visualize their next step, or they can visualize the end of their student experience, perhaps. And we know that when students feel isolated or they're not feeling part of a community, they will drop out and will have high attrition rates. So I just wanted to throw that in to make sure that we are seeing the two sides. One, from the design perspective, the university is driving the design of the educational experience and the degree programs and so on, the qualifications. But let's not forget about the student perspective as well, and try to put our minds in their position. Just wanted to throw that in. Thanks very much.
Thank you. And Jolly.
Yeah, hi, lovely discussion. I've not been a good student. I forgot to introduce myself. So before I jump into my conclusion, this is Dr. Jolly Sahni. I'm the Associate Director for MBA Program and Director for Jubilation Office, which is a unique happiness office at Prince Sultan University in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. So I agree with my colleagues, and when they were talking, something came to my mind about two things. Number one, students do think, what's in it for me? Why they're going to attend the session. So keeping them engaged with different activities is very important. And second is redefining the role of teachers, redefining the role of instructors to be more of facilitators, collaborators, be more empathetic, to fill in the digital gap if we have, or any kind of trouble students are facing. So as somebody said, not everybody is at the same level, when we talk about, so it's not equality, it's also about equity. So we need to cater to that aspect also. And of course, life lessons are equally important. Lifelong learning, we need to make them understand how to be self-learners, how to continue learning for their good and be ready for the future of work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we've already touched on this a few times, but I'd like to kind of ask a more specific question. So how can the flexibility of hybrid learning boost student diversity and inclusivity? I think we've mentioned the values of kind of embedding the values of, for example, tolerance and justice within the curriculum. But is there a way that remote learning can enable you to get more students or get more out of your students? I'd love to know what your experiences have been. Catherine.
Hi, so I guess I'm going to go back to the example very briefly that I mentioned earlier with the students, obviously, where we had the industry experts, some of them are from the States. That wouldn't have been able to happen without digital, obviously. So it just meant, I suppose, I'm not sure whether I'm actually answering your question here specifically, but certainly in terms of thinking about an inclusive environment and enabling all students to get the benefits of this approach, being able to, for example, invite our experts and doing that specifically online and have all the students there, and that we did it in a group. Group work can be very, very challenging when you're teaching, but we enable that flexibility, and I think it worked so well using digital environment in a way that it wouldn't have done if we might have done it face to face. I think there are opportunities for digital, and certainly I come from that digital perspective in helping shape inclusive learning experiences in different ways. So I thought that worked quite well. It was also, we did the same sort of similar technique when I worked at the Open University. I was there for 8 years as a senior producer working on MOOCs at the time. And we, again, coming back to that motivation and the student experience that Gareth talked about is really, really important. And students should be at the heart of everything that we do, as sort of education institutions thinking about putting the student first. How can we do that? How can we shape it so different students who have different abilities and are coming from different backgrounds, how can they work together and collaborate most effectively? So part of that was in the way we shape and give them the opportunities, how they work together in their groups, so they can kind of make those decisions and we support them, but also opportunities using, how can we make the best, for example, of digital technology that really supports inclusion. And I think our session that we did last week, for example, with the pitching session, showed that, with 100% attendance, with all the students contributing, building on their own strengths, that worked really, really well. So I do think digital has a real role to play in supporting inclusive learning environments.
Fantastic, thank you. And Lisa.
Thank you. So I'll draw upon an example of the peer enhanced e-placement PEEP that I created actually as an emergency response to COVID when our students weren't able to go out on placement, but actually having evaluated and developed the model since. It offers an online work-based learning opportunity for students that makes it more accessible to some students who can not necessarily afford to go on placements, have perhaps caring responsibilities, aren't able to logistically move somewhere to go on a work-based learning placement. And certainly what we found through the PEEP is going back to that learning design and using actually modelled on Professor Gilly Salmon's 5-stage of learning model, and very much uses the peer group pedagogy to support students through their learning, which again has been shown to give everybody a voice in their learning as well, where some people, when they're working online, if they're working alone, don't necessarily feel as if they can contribute. Something working within peer groups can really sometimes give some students a voice that otherwise wouldn't have that. And certainly the PEEP has been shown to offer that sort of more accessible work-based learning experience for students, which when we're looking at the wider student experience, and certainly from an employability point of view, employers really, really value work-based learning experiences that students can bring when they graduate and then are applying for jobs. So having a work-based learning experience that's delivered entirely online, but offering that additional opportunity to some students who perhaps otherwise might not get that opportunity, then shows the benefit really of some of that online delivery for those student populations that otherwise might not experience something that is so crucial to their employability and wider student experience as well.
Thank you. That sounds like a fantastic initiative. Massimo, what would you say? Yeah, I just want to add that inclusivity actually it's kind of the bottom line for us at Class Technology. It's one of the key reasons. It's part of our mission, what we want to do. What I can mention here, based on the experience that we see at our own clients, that there has started, several universities had started, once they started implementing, such a comprehensive solutions that we deliver to them, they started opening actually courses, to students that are in other countries and other continents, and we see a lot of, actually universities doing that. So this is definitely like with the inclusivity, because students that are remotely based, they cannot afford really to move physically to a different, to a different country to pay very high fees. I mean, they can actually have a good compromise, having, access to the online courses and more and more actually even to hybrid courses going forward. Now we see that they had started one with master or executive programs doing that. But now, over the last year in particular, we have seen that, even though now
the pandemic can be definitely considered, let's say, over. Let's say they're opening more and more the regular courses to hybrid learning, or to put them, in a way that can be accessed also, in a, let's say, in a different model, a different format. And this is definitely giving more and more chances, to actually improve the quality of education that everybody, should be able to access. So it's definitely in line to what should be, is one of the sustainable, development goals of the United Nations, and we're working on that direction. But we see this experience happening more and more across our client community, actually.
Fantastic. And we've touched on this before as well, but I also wanted to know, how can you best facilitate social interaction between students? Because we all know that's such an important key part of university. When you're delivering online learning, how do you facilitate this interaction? And how can this actually improve students' well-being? Lisa, so your hand go up straight away.
So I can refer back to the peer enhanced deep placement, the PEEP again, in the fact that it really drew upon the peer group learning literature that actually again is very supportive of student learning and that sort of pedagogical quality that Gareth was talking about earlier, about making sure it's quality learning and relevant and authentic for students as well. So the peer group learning, I think, and designing learning opportunities for students to engage authentically with that then helps with their learning, and making sure that it then helps with their mental well-being, because they then feel part of a community. They feel part as if they're socializing through their learning rather than feeling as though they're on their own at home learning online. So I think definitely that peer group pedagogy has a real strength in the online learning environment, but certainly that learning needs to be scaffolded and designed well, support that learning and ensure that the way that it's designed leads and supports the students through their individual learning alongside the peer group learning as well, to make sure that there is that consolidation and metacognition as well. Someone talked about feedback earlier. All of those principles of assessment, feedback, consolidation, reflection, to lead to that metacognition, that individual ownership of their learning as well, is really important.
Fantastic, thank you. I see a lot of hands up, which is great. So Gareth, I'm going to go to you first.
Thanks. This is a really interesting area, and it was something that I was particularly concerned about during the pandemic, because for us in the Open University, for students to turn up online, experience a tutorial and disappear, and they're losing that socializing connectivity that Lisa talked about, and the authentic experience of when they would be perhaps going to a local college for a tutorial. I was really worried about that and the mental health impact. So one of the things that we did, particularly in some of the areas that I was involved in, is we created this kind of extracurricular kind of cafes, if you like, a social space where students can go and talk and discuss. But that can be quite sterile if you're not careful. So one of the things that we did is we worked on providing some background images and music and discussions and so on, to encourage that kind of social interaction between students. And that seemed to work quite well, particularly at the beginning of a module. It worked really well. And the other thing that we kind of did is looked at the kind of get students to kind of select using kind of Myers-Briggs type technology, if you like, or knowledge, trying to help them identify which group work group they would be in for their group work, which worked really well, actually, surprisingly really well. So I think that we have to create an environment away from the learning as well as within the learning in order to create those social dimensions. And this is an area that I'm working on at the moment, in creating a hierarchy of social dimensions within learning. And it's a really important area, and it's really underdeveloped, I would say, at this moment in time. We really don't know enough about this in a hybrid or distance learning context, about how to create that social dimension within the learning. So just a plea that we need to do a lot more, I think. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. And Hatem?
Yeah, I think that it's all about to understand the students. The students, they they are not studying alone. They have their own way of dealing with this online learning. They discuss between them. I know that a lot of my students, they discuss through social media tools. They have an account everywhere on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, etc. Then I need that we need to and also they are connected to famous people, and they learn better from them. They hear, they believe them. Then the idea was to use these figures and to use these tools and to train our faculty to use these tools, to upgrade our faculty to understand that through a game you can learn. Minecraft is a tool. I don't know, other games could be used. Even FIFA, all right, because we are in the World Cup now, they can teach you how to collaborate, and we can teach them analytics. We can ask them to count. We can ask them to deal with numbers. They will be attentive. They will watch the game, and they will get with you with some statistical analytics. This is what has been done in the Statistics 101 that we are delivering this semester. Then all is about using different tools that are available with the students. They know. Regarding, I did not answer the question, diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's that the good thing with the online, it's that we accept others, because we don't touch others, we don't look at others, we exchange text, etc. Then students will be more, they will accept more diversity. Equity is clear because it's transparent, and inclusion is there if the teacher or the one who is running the course could accept that. Plus, as mentioned by our colleagues, I think that extracurriculum activities are very important and should be rewarded or should be given, like, I don't know, credit for that. And that's what we are doing. There is an idea to create what we call the A credit. I saw that in Morocco. I visited Morocco for an accreditation as a member of the team, and I saw how they use the internship to create these, to enhance these tools. So all the tools are available, but we need to understand our customer, which is the student, all right, and invest on these tools that they know already, but we need to upgrade ourselves, all right, and to give a better learning experience to our students.
Thank you. Catherine.
I really like, Gareth, the idea of the social hierarchy. I think I might have to investigate that myself. It sounds really, really interesting. But also, I think some of this comes back to value again, and what value the student is going to gain. And what we've learned, I think, in terms of, you know, the engagement, yes, you make sure that students have different ways to engage. Not everybody wants to speak, either put the camera on or even just speak with audio, or, you know, in the session. So if you're running synchronous sessions, you need to make sure that there are different ways of them engaging. So we did a peer feedback review before we had the industry experts come in and do the review with the panel last week. We created a Padlet, really simple thing, where we, you know, you can post anonymously in Padlet. So we allowed different student groups to feedback using the Padlet on each other's group work. So that worked quite well. That was quite successful. We also found that having smaller group work sessions, which work well synchronously online as they do sort of in person. So you've got that smaller group where people seem to be, your students are happier to talk in their groups because they've already sort of formed their groups and they feel more comfortable maybe than in a bigger space. So it's thinking about all these different ways, but it does come back to, you know, why should I be here? Why should I be here for this session or contribute? You have to make it add value and meaning to the students. So again, I'm coming back to learning design and thinking about the planning of the activities and adding the value. For me, that is really important. You know, it's the same for myself when I do an online course. I'm thinking, well, why should I be here? Why should I, you know, contribute to this session? And we have to have that view again, that putting the student at the heart of everything and making it, you know, really important that they do contribute. And the why, coming back to that, you know, the why, and making it a safe and inclusive space is really important as well.
Fantastic, thank you. Massimo.
Yeah, actually, I should raise my hands because I really wanted to mention something about what Catherine mentioned, because it's a very strong point. You know, the ability to, for example, divide it and teach in small groups because people can interact much more. I mean, going back to this, you know, recent paper, you know, research that was released, I think, you know, Students obviously see a lot of advantages using an hybrid learning models or pure online learning models, but when we ask them, about the disadvantages, they see that they have less opportunity to socialize, obviously, and less opportunity to interact with students and the instructors, the professors. So basically, we focus, the development of some areas of functionality that can boost that. Two in particular, one in the breakout rooms, as I mentioned before, but the breakout rooms actually, are very advanced breakout rooms, and we need to put actually the professors in a position to be able to monitor multiple breakout rooms at the same time, participate in that. So empower the student in each one of the breakout rooms. In each one, they can do a totally different activities, and at the same time, they can still monitor that. We also have developed an analytics dashboard, extremely advanced, that is given then, at the end of the session, the instructor can see actually the level of interaction, the level of participations that the students are having, and they can run even, a cross-sections type of reporting for an entire semester, so they can see actually the evolution. And they can do also one-to-one, type of live session within a group, with individual students. This is extremely important because the student needs to be engaged, obviously, but the professors need to be able to actually keep track of what's happening. Again, going back to what I was mentioning before, when you are physically present in a live, classroom, then you establish a different type of relationship. It's much easier actually to keep track of the ones that participate in the most, the ones that participate in the least. But actually, when you're transferring these activities online, it's challenging. So you need to have the right areas of functionalities and analytics to make sure that you can actually push for more interaction, but at the same time you can keep track over time, even across hundreds of students at the same time across all your courses.
Fantastic, thank you, Massimo. We've already talked about this a bit, especially Catherine, but I wanted to ask, how can digital learning encourage collaboration with industry as well as cross-institutional collaboration? And what's been your experience at your institutions?
Sorry, is that to me, Julia?
No, you mentioned. I know you'll have stuff to say about this, but I was also wondering if anyone else had experienced a similar thing. I see Jolly's got her hand up.
Yeah, hi. Yes, again, going back to digital tools or digital platforms, I do believe after COVID, the partnerships have been accelerated. And recently I was in the Global Sustainable Development Congress in Scotland, and it was all about partnerships. And everybody, all walks of life, people came from, and they were talking about how industry is liaising with university people, how universities are doing partnership, not only for the internship co-op program, but also, having advisory boards through online meetings, getting their feedback, how to keep students ready for the gig world. There is another term which has come as a gig economy, which is more on the IT platforms. Information technology. So yes, the partnerships have been accelerated through technology. I believe that this has been a blessing in disguise, I believe, after COVID-19. So partnerships in terms of inviting guest lectures from Harvard, from Oxford, in Prince Sultan University. Now we have like a guest lecture every week, and there is no foundation. They are at their space, they are delivering online. Of course, there's a facilitator, there is somebody in the room to facilitate the things, and it's actually very beneficial, and students are engaged in such type of activities. So collaborations with industry and with other universities, research collaborations have increased multifold. So there are many aspects, multi-aspects to look at the partnerships and collaborations happening through technology.
Thank you. Lisa.
So I suppose there are two aspects to this for me. There's certainly been more collaboration across the University of East Anglia with other colleagues. Someone talked about the culture change that is required in order to adapt and adopt the principles that are needed to deliver quality and authentic online learning. It's not just about putting a record button on and bringing people into an online room. It's very different learning, the design that needs to be put into place. And everybody's been on that learning journey together. So I'd say that there's been quite a lot of collaboration across the wider university that otherwise wouldn't have happened, because everybody is learning this new skill that they're needing to do in order to foster that learning environment for students. And then I would say across externally, there's certainly increased collaboration opportunities with other colleagues across the higher education sector, because everybody's been forced into the online world in a way that we never anticipated. And so I think my networking, my collaboration with those outside of my university has increased significantly. But going back again, sorry to sound like a broken record about PEEP, the placement opportunity is a fact that because it's delivered online with specific elements that employers are involved with, that has enabled collaboration with some employers that otherwise the students would not have had the opportunity to collaborate and work with. So the online world has offered the opportunity to give the students a breadth of exposure that otherwise wouldn't have been possible through the real in-person world. The other thing I'd like to draw upon as well is a point that Catherine made about online being a safe space for learning. And certainly we have done research on the PEEP as to why it's been so successful with multiple students across multiple different professions now. And students come up time and time again about this safe space for learning, particularly within the peer group learning, that opportunity to interrogate each other, as well as reflect on their own learning and be sort of a critical lens on their own learning. And it goes back to another point about the change in role between the sort of teacher lecturer to be more of a facilitator of learning, giving the student the opportunity to have a bit more agency over their learning, which again is a really critical skill and attribute that the employers are looking for employability wise. So I think when things are managed, designed, and change management in different roles and responsibilities, access to wider opportunities for employers, etc., that the online learning can offer that really sort of opportunities otherwise that aren't there for the students, but it does need to be designed, managed, and the principles of that need to be accepted by all, really.
Definitely, thank you. And we've mentioned employability. Obviously, that's one of our key indicators of institutional success. And as Jolly said, we need to prepare students for the real world. But how do you think digital learning platforms can prepare students for what's now an increasingly hybrid working world? Massimo, I'd love to know what, I'll go to Massimo first and then Catherine, thank you.
So I go first. Okay, yeah. So, well, something that I wanted to mention again, a couple of important data actually on the research that was carried out is that it looks like 76% of students expect the future work experience to be hybrid in nature, and 64% believe that either learning is more reflective of the modern workplace than learning entirely in person. So basically, the students are already into the type of mindset that is required, by the time they leave universities and they start working in companies. So class technologies positions the solutions not only in university but also in the corporate sector. So when we talk to companies that need to train the students for upskilling, reskilling, to become more competitive, to definitely for talent retention, we actually provide them with a solution that can boost their communication and their collaboration. So it's not just a pure video conferencing solutions. So we see that when they implement these technologies, they use it to train staff, but they use it to actually also improve the productivity and the flexibility, because they can have remote employees working together on the same project, which is exactly what is going to start happening today, even in universities, with the same courses where the students learn how to collaborate together actually on joint projects. Actually, we see that this has a huge impact in the companies to improve the way they reach the market, how fast they do it, how they become more competitive out there, and they are in a better position to retain talent. And this is something that, purely on money has a huge return of investment that is measurable on the corporate side. I'm pretty confident that this is going to be measurable also on the university side. And learning that is something actually that the students expect, because they expect to learn not only the content itself, right, or what they're studying, but also these type of soft skills and the ability, to meet basically the requirements of the corporate world by the time they leave university and they start actually working. So we see this as a strong requirement, and in Class Technology, we develop our platform to meet those requirements.
Fantastic, thank you. Catherine?
Yeah, so I think for me, it's again that the sort of real world learning, what platforms are being used in the real world, in industry, that students are familiar with, and how we can enhance their digital capabilities, but in the context of employability. So here, for example, thinking about brainstorming and different platforms you may use for that. So we're using Miro quite a lot more, because Miro was used in certain areas where you can develop ideas and use it for brainstorming, use the virtual sticky notes, that sort of thing, and collaborate in those different ways. So the digital tools do help enable that, but of course it is still thinking about in terms of employability, how you can contribute to that in terms of developing ideas and that sort of thing. So digital technology is a sort of enabler, rather than, it is key, but it's also about how you work together, whether in terms of how certain behaviors in meetings and how you contribute and all that. So we're kind of enhancing student skills in that way, in those social skills and behavioral skills, as well as using the digital technology skills, I would say. Certainly, there are so many different, it comes back also thinking about assessment and authentic. We talk about authentic assessment quite a lot, and thinking about how we can be diverse and offer different approaches in assessment. And certainly, it isn't all about doing the PowerPoint, it's thinking about different ways of how you can, and again, that sort of inclusive assessment. But certainly if you're working in media production, then you need to be able to obviously create audio and video and be able to present your ideas. So coming back to that skill set about presentation and presenting your ideas, and using different digital tools and technologies to do that. So in a way, I think, it's great that digital has enabled that, and enabled students to perhaps be more industry ready than, say, we might have been a number of years ago. Certainly when I went into radio and video production, it was very different back then. Now it's, there's a lot of opportunities, and you can see it in what the students are delivering. Like in our session last week, I was absolutely amazed. The quality of the presentations and their ideas was really, really impressive.
Fantastic. And Jolly?
Yeah, just to add one quick point, for collaborative learning and having team-based projects, yes, physically we are doing, but there are many business simulations available for business schools wherein students can collaborate and do the collaboration online, which is similar to what work is demanding from them. And students do work on Bloomberg terminals at Prince Sultan University. They have a lot of simulations. So it's a replica of what they are going to do at workplace. And even the co-op, the internships, do demand such kind of preparedness for students. Just a quick point wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you. And Gareth and Hatem, what have you found have you found that digital platforms are preparing students more? Have you found any difference? Yeah.
No, we are moving through different platforms. Students, as I mentioned, are good. They are really mature. I think that during the last 15 years, students were trained at home on using different platforms. As I mentioned earlier, we need to adjust our capabilities. We need to follow the flow, all right, and we need to take benefit out of it in order to improve the learning experience for our students. And that's the real challenge now, even for me at the college. It's not related to age. It's related to the engagement of faculty in terms of gathering or moving forward with their students and taking benefit of the available tools in the market.
Fantastic. Gareth?
Yeah, just to kind of add and kind of finish off, I guess. I mean, I think there's, it goes back to what I was saying earlier a little bit, and that is students will be at different levels because they'll have different access to digital infrastructure. Their literacy of digital literacy will be different. Their knowledge of how the systems work will varied. So to give you a very simple example, we might run online events, and some students will join with a top of the range MacBook or something similar, but others will join with a mobile phone because that's the only device that they have, or an iPad. They struggle, and I think the software or the platforms have incredibly increased in performance over the last 2 to 3 years. If I think back to what the Microsoft products were like 2 or 3 years ago, they're very, very different. Teams is very different. We use Adobe Connect at the OU, and again, the increase in performance is immense. But I think you also need to think about the formal to the informal. And the informal is a lot of students won't engage with the systems that we might put forward. They'll adopt their own, like WhatsApp or something similar, or different Facebook groups or whatever it may be. And so we need to be very conscious of making sure that we're very clear what platforms we want them to use and why we want to use them and what benefits it brings them, so we can have some kind of influence over that learning journey. I think that's really, really important. So I think we've got to give students the ability to enhance their skills, to develop their knowledge of how to engage in a world that's very digital savvy these days, but also to think about how they choose to interact at times. Thanks. I just wanted to throw that one in.
Yeah, fantastic. I think that's a great note to end on, actually, because unfortunately we are at the end of the hour. I know there's a lot more we could discuss. I'd like to thank you all so much for being here today. It's been a really, really interesting discussion. I hope you've got a lot out of it. And I'd like to remind you all, obviously, that there will be a recording of today's article and a summary discussion available on the Times Higher Education website. And yeah, I hope you found today useful, and we hope to be able to engage with you again at future THE events.